Note to self: get a green couch.
Oh, that's a good idea. Ladies and gentlemen, and variations thereof, welcome to the Selectives Lorecast, a casual Elder Scrolls podcast, and I just realized I really want a green couch. My name is Rotten Deadite, and with me today are...
I am James, also known as Aramithius.
I am Nick, the one who suggested a green couch.
And I'm Andrew, also known as the White War, trying to figure out how the fuck this works.
And actually, David the Ginger is right in chat. I should have started this off with Dark Brotherhood questions, but instead, we're just going to jump straight into it, because why prep?
Well, I feel like that could have turned very easily into a Monty Python thing.
It could have,
What's
yeah.
your favorite color?
Yeah.
Blue! No, green!
No, red!
Blue!
Today we're talking about the Dark Brotherhood, because apparently we haven't really had an actual honest-to-God Dark Brotherhood cast, or if we have, it's just been a minute. So, that's what we're going to do today. It's probably, I mean, in my opinion, it's the Dark Brotherhood quests in Oblivion and Skyrim are pretty much as good as you could possibly get in the games. Oblivion felt like a phenomenal, just insane murder spree, and the one in Skyrim reminded me of Grand Theft Auto for some reason, of just people giving you hey, you should go and do this completely insane and stupid thing, like kill the Emperor of Cyrodiil, and your character's just like, yeah, that's logical. That's a good idea. Yeah, I'm gonna go do that.
I'm a Dragonborn. I've got this.
Yeah, no problem. Yeah, no problem, man. And I mean, why did you not end up the Emperor of Cyrodiil at the end of Skyrim in the first place? I don't know. Don't get me started, please, Jesus. Anyway,
Yet, damn it.
Yep. Hey, there you are.
That would be a fun
Yeah, I can hear you now.
Okay.
Yay!
You couldn't hear me before?
I couldn't hear you before, but I can hear you now. It's not the best audio.
Yeah, it was picking up my Vive microphone.
Nice. No, it's done that before. Yeah. But we're still in the midst of tech support on the Selectives Lorecast. But
Yeah.
I could shout at it like this, but that would just look stupid.
Yeah. And so let's start off like I always like to do. Let's start off with the basics. The Dark Brotherhood is, at first glance, another organization for you to grind out quests with. They are historically, we're told, a response to the I guess you could say corruption of the Morag Tong by House Lalu.
Was it House Lalu?
If I recall correctly, it was House Lalu, I think, or just the Dunmer houses in general. I think they were just looking for a way to do state-sanctioned assassination.
I think is it Brothers in Dark? No. There's a lore book. I can't remember which one it is, and it suggests that the Dark Brotherhood split off from the Morag Tong because of the schism between the Tribunal and Mephala.
Yeah.
So, because Vivek may have become the patron of the Morag Tong, and Mephala wasn't happy about that. So she's like, "Oh, we'll just make a new Assassin's Guild with blow and hookers."
That sounds like ESO lore to me.
Not quite. Well, there's the general stuff about Mephala becoming displeased with the Morag Tong because of what they were doing, and it was getting almost too political, that they were kind of forgetting their roots of worship as their main reason for killing. That's been around since at least the Elder Scrolls 3. Whether they're explicitly tying it to Vec being the one pulling strings.
Yeah, that might be a little speculation, but I mean it's not a far
I mean,
jump.
mostly.
It would also make sense, but I also staggered across some stuff recently that suggests that it was possibly because they weren't getting the job done, because which would put them as being a schism of much later, because of the big and very public Morag Tong assassination by the last Roman emperor. They then were outlawed everywhere else and hunted down, and so the killing wasn't getting done, and Mephala wants the killing to get done, or Sithis wants the killing to get done, and so they were saying, right, I need an organization that can actually get this stuff done and not be hunted down because of whoever they were,
Right.
and it gets taken off that way.
Well, this raises, first off, a very basic question about the Dark Brotherhood, which is, why do they worship Sithis if they were originally created by Mephala?
That is a really good question, unless they never stopped worshipping Sithis, and because there's one source that claims that the Tong worshipped Sithis. They had a whole bunch of writs that had references to Sithis or Sithis type sounds and stuff, which indicates that the Tong were also wanting to worship Sithis as well. So it's possible they're going back to their roots. Again, if they're just after murder, then Sithis is kind of your guy, entropy, chaos, and whatever else. But there's also the idea that the Night Mother is the figure that sort of drove that distinction. That Night Mother was, according to some sources at least, an office within the Morag Tong. And there was one particular Night Mother who thought that that there needed to be more killing going on, so she prayed to Sithis. Sithis impregnated her, and a few years later, she killed all 5 of the children that he gave her.
Right.
And that was the start of the Dark Brotherhood, and presumably also where they got their whole model of the hands and the listener and the 4 speakers.
Yeah, except the hand and the 4 listeners and the speaker, etc. I mean, it's good, but the origin of of the organization being spawned, if you will, by Mephala fits in well with the Black Hand.
Yes.
And it's really hard to ignore that connection as well. So this is, at the end of the day, what we've got, I think, is several very good explanations of where this guild came from, all of which are plausible, and any of which could be true, and ideally speaking, we'll never know. Because, yeah, it is. It's a very Mephalian the Black Hand. Yep. It's a very good symbol. It's really hard to ignore. And it's also interesting because I have a tinfoil Colovian fur helm theory that the Dark Brotherhood is actually created by Vivek in the 36 Lessons, in Sermon 23 or whatever it is, or 24 something, 22, I don't know. When Z descends to the Morag Tong and impregnates all the mothers and etc. And Vivek is another entity that is depicted as writing with blackened hands by herself in the 36 Lessons. So, yeah, there's another one.
Totally unrelated.
Uh-huh.
For some, I can't get this recording software to work. It's not doing anything. So I think when I switched my mic, it stopped recording, and then I tried to start recording again, and it wasn't counting up.
We can iron out the kinks once we're done with the cast, and just make sure we get it done for next time.
So I have no recording for you this time, because I'm not fucking with it when I'm trying to have important conversations.
So when we have when you join the Dark Brotherhood in both Oblivion and Skyrim, membership is delayed until you, generally speaking, commit a crime of murdering an innocent civilian, which I believe in Oblivion you can murder literally anybody.
Oblivion, with the exception of like Martin and Joffrey.
Oh. Excuse me, yeah. Any actual civilian, not plot important NPC. And I believe the same thing applies to Skyrim, but I'm not 100% sure about that. I don't think it is, actually. because in Skyrim, the only way to get accepted is to do the Dark Brotherhood's business for it. But in Oblivion, there is also a quest that will make you kill or it gives you the opportunity to kill an NPC if you haven't already. And as anybody who's played role-playing games knows, the main character of a role-playing game won't do anything unless there's a quest associated with it. So, so that gives the player the opportunity to join the Dark Brotherhood at that point. But murdering a civilian is a requirement. Why?
Because you need to be shown to be relatively committed to destruction, I assume, and that sort of thing. That feels
It's
very,
job
very
experience.
obvious.
Yeah.
That feels very, very obvious and
Just get your foot in the door.
easy to conflate with Mehrunes Dagon, but it's the best option. It's the best option I can think of at this point.
Well, I mean, are they just going to approach, Jim the cobbler from down the street, who's got 3 kids and not so much as a parking ticket, or are they going to come and go, hey, we like your work, we're big fans, you're murdering.
How did you get that how did you get that nun spread across 3 different counties?
Yeah.
What is it Aldo says? How would you like to go pro?
Yeah. And that's kind of the sort of the point of the Dark Brotherhood is not that you are willing to murder anybody or willing to kill a human being, but rather that you are willing to kill a human being who is not has not engaged in violence as a lifestyle. So murdering a guard won't get you the job. Murdering any mercenaries won't get you the job. Warriors, thieves, etc. doesn't matter. You have to kill somebody who isn't willingly living by the sword, and that's what qualifies you into the Dark Brotherhood, or it gives you the potential for a midnight interview. And going by the usual, I just want to point out that the fact that that you were recruited by a member of the Dark Brotherhood after waking up from sleep follows the usual, slightly metaphysical twinge of the Elder Scrolls being, dream-oriented and etc. But or how important things happen in dreams. But that's relatively minor. I think it's there for the shock value, to be honest with you.
Yeah. I think because one of my biggest complaints about Oblivion, and I'm not the only one who thinks this, is that Oblivion is very, dare I say, casual. It's generic and kind of bland from a fantasy respect. It follows a lot of those tropes and it loses a lot of its depth because of that. But when it comes to joining the Dark Brotherhood, it's murder for murder's sake. And that's really what it boils down to. There's not really, I don't think there's a whole lot of thought behind it.
Yeah.
It's why does the Dark Brotherhood like that you just murdered? Well, it's murder. That's why. That's, I feel like that was their only real thought into it. It's, how do you join an Assassin's Guild? Well, you go kill somebody. What are you talking about?
Yeah.
It murder is murder.
Yeah, how do you play guitar? Start playing guitar.
What's so hard
Same
about
thing. Yeah. And it's interesting that the Dark Brotherhood has a recruiting system like that, because you'd think they'd be a little bit more exclusive. I'm just saying. But they're very, very secretive, supposedly, in Oblivion. I think they smell the plot on you. It's like they could smell plot armor. This guy knows how to quick save.
That guy's an anime protagonist. Let's get him.
Yeah.
He's got goofy hair.
You also have there is some implication of some more metaphysical guidance from the Dark Brotherhood in some of the sources that that the listener just gets picked by the Night Mother and all of a sudden starts receiving these messages in their head, which suggests that if the listener knows that someone should be in the Dark Brotherhood, they can be told about it by the Night Mother, who can pick it up through whatever means they have available, and then go and get them, rather than just picking up any random street thug. Because as much as there are street thugs in the Dark Brotherhood for a variety of different reasons. That they don't have to be. I mean, I always remember that the orc from Oblivion, who just never goes after the bonuses, just does the most simple, brutal murders possible, just because that's what he enjoys.
And you also have to consider that after you commit the murder, you're interviewed.
Yeah.
Who says that there's even a double-digit survival rate for those interviews?
That's true. That's a good point. Yeah. Yeah, that's true. And in Skyrim, the interview is definitely sort of like an on-the-job kind of, both feet first into the deep end of the pool kind of thing. Here's 3 people, murder one of them. Don't guess wrong. Spoiler alert, you can't. And
then you can turn around and kill Astrid if you want.
Which is a great twist that, if I recall correctly, they kind of wanted to do more of that. Well, they wanted to do more of that in Skyrim, if I recall correctly. They had a similar quest line plotted out for the Thieves Guild, but that they never got a chance to implement, which was the idea of wrecking the Thieves Guild instead of joining it.
That was one thing that I very much enjoyed about Skyrim's faction quests, is that there was so much more. It was a little more dramatic in terms of like the writing. Like, hey, we're gonna give you some twists and turns, and you're gonna be in the middle of this, but they were so short. So it's like they sacrificed quantity for quality.
Yeah.
And which, I mean, if it hadn't been a game that's 10 years old, like, sure, all right.
And also, if voice acting wasn't so fucking expensive and etc.
Oh, that too,
and that's actually that was something they also wanted to do the same thing for the companions. They wanted to allow you to join the
Silver Hand.
The Silver Hand. Yeah. And that never shook out. And this was these are all. I mean, these are the first things that hit the cutting room floor when the budget gets thin. Is you just go, well, we can't do the alternative, quests. That's the first thing. And it makes sense.
I forget during the Skyrim on the job interview. Can you kill all 3?
I don't know. Can you?
Yes, you can. Yeah, I do it every time.
It just feels like the correct choice.
Yeah, well, and Astrid asks, well, why'd you kill all 3? And you're like, well, one of them was bound to be the person that you wanted me to kill. And she's like, all right.
Murder is murder.
Yeah,
has a quality all its own.
Not really a wrong way to do that, is
I
there?
don't know. I never tried killing all 4. I should try that next time I play Dark Brotherhood, whenever that is. I haven't played Skyrim in years.
No witnesses.
Well, the Kill the Dark Brotherhood quest line is still in the game, if I recall correctly. Okay.
Yeah.
What does Astrid say when you kill her, Doc? That's a good. I don't remember that.
It's something like. Something like well done or good choice or something like that. She does have some dying words to that effect.
Well done.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
There should have been an option to kill Astrid and join the Dark Brotherhood anyway.
Yeah.
Just show up at the sanctuary wearing it.
All right, Baka.
Just show up at the Dark Brotherhood sanctuary wearing an Astrid skin suit.
Well, see, but I mean, from how completely insane some of the quests are in the Dark Brotherhood quest lines, that would not surprise me. Yeah. I mean, in Skyrim, for God's sake, you end up like basically getting really cuddly with the Night Mother's corpse.
Yeah.
Which was the creepiest fucking thing.
Or else it gets the something again.
Yeah. It was so good. That whole part of that quest was just like, you need somewhere to hide, and the quest marker's like, come on, get in it. And I'm like, okay, here we go.
I do not want to, Captain.
Yeah. Here's where things start running right off the rails. Yeah.
Now I'm just imagining showing up at the sanctuary wearing Astrid's skin, and everybody's just like, this guy is a pro.
Yeah. Wow, this guy's really good. They all call you Astrid because they're afraid to piss you off.
In which case,
just go
why
with
do
it.
they kind of bother with the with the Black Sacrament and everything else, though, if they are just about murder, though,
I'm glad you brought that up.
why do you need the sacrament? And the words of the sacrament just kind of puzzle me as well, because they imply that there is some inherent justice in what the Dark
No, they
Brotherhood
don't.
do.
They don't imply that at all. Oh, well, excuse me. The words imply. You're right. The words do imply that. Yeah.
The words are that the sins of the unworthy must be baptized in blood and fear.
Mm-hmm.
So, if someone is to be killed, and that's the plea of the people doing the sacrament, they are considered unworthy in some way.
Right.
So, well, if it's Sithis, which is just angry entropy, basically everything's unworthy.
Yeah. Even the people who work for him. Yeah. And but that entropy is very interesting, because it's one of the things that I like the most about the Oblivion Dark Brotherhood quest is, by the way, spoilers for those of you who haven't played Oblivion, but it's way too late for that shit. If you consider Sithis as being like this like angry, destructive force, the fact that you end up killing the entire guild that you're with and starting all over again makes a whole lot of sense. I mean, it's very appropriate. But let's talk about the Black Sacrament. That's actually a good place to dig into. So the parameters for the sacrament are that you need a human heart, and you stab it repeatedly while repeating this.
I think you need a circle of candles. You need the human heart, the dagger, and I think you need at least some human bones too.
And possibly like Nightshade or Belladonna.
Oh yeah.
Nightshade.
Yeah, you need Nightshade.
Hold on, I'm looking it up. Black.
Which may very well just be the way of dialing Sithis' phone number.
Yeah, I mean that strikes me as. That strikes me because there were similar things you had to do in like Daggerfall, for example. If you wanted to summon a Daedric prince, you had to prepare a little ritual, and so it seems to me that if go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, according to the A Kiss Sweet Mother book, the Black Sacrament, you need to build an effigy of the intended victim from actual body parts, including a heart, a skull, bones, and flesh, within a circle of candles.
Yeah, there you go.
And you stab the crap out of that heart while with a dagger rubbed with the petals of a nightshade plant while doing the prayer. There's no word about how long you need to do this. In the case of whatever that kid's name is in Skyrim, you can do it for 60 fucking years, because you could go in and take one look at that kid stabbing the crap out of that heart and then leave, and then come back 4 months later in game and he's still doing it and the heart's still in one piece. How is that possible? It should be hamburger.
Well, he's been through like 4 hearts at this point.
One assumes.
Obviously, they've been defective.
Apparently, they're just selling human hearts at the local 7-Eleven in Skyrim.
Yeah,
he's very bad at stabbing. That's a great point, Baka.
It's a very, very odd kind of thing, because if they're trying to be,
you need to hammer the heart and then stab it.
if they're trying to be exclusive, if they're trying to be less exclusive than the Morag Tong, and kind of broaden the murdering franchise, so to speak, this is a very, very convoluted way to do it.
Well, it would be if you consider that human hearts are as hard to get in Skyrim as they are to get in the real world. But apparently that's not the case. Because
everyone's got one.
Yeah, some like 8-year-old kid in Windhelm or wherever was able to get it. So like,
I just tripped down to the morgue. No big deal.
Yeah, apparently shit ain't that hard.
More interestingly, consider that.
That's true, Captain. Everybody's got one. That's a very good point.
if you've got people performing this basically ritualistic murder, what are the odds that they're gonna then like think, oh, murder is bad, I can't murder?
Yeah.
Perhaps the purpose of the sacrament isn't necessarily to just call forth an assassin. It is to
gauge your devotion,
and to perhaps even convert civilians into members.
That's a good point.
It's not about increasing the number of murders, it's about increasing the number of murderers.
Yeah, it could be. And That's a really good idea. There is the question of who are you praying to in the Black Sacrament, or where does the prayer go? Sithis is an easy answer, but I prefer to think it goes to the Night Mother because I don't like the idea of Sithis being an entity that communicates with anybody.
Well, you're addressing the Night Mother, sweet mother,
Oh, that's true.
Channel them to me.
You're right.
Like you're talking to the Night Mother, so I think that means you're talking to Mephala.
The Dark Mother is an influencer. Ooh.
Yeah. So I mean, if you're talking to the Night Mother or Mephala, like I mean, going back to that Daggerfall, ritual kind of stuff, just summoning Mephala's attention, and then she, through the Night Mother, sends a someone to come and hash out the details. Like Mephala's too fucking to deal with your silly. Details, like I'll have one of my minions do it.
She's got model shoots for her Instagram. She's got
she's got sex and murder to go do.
That's actually an interesting question. If we have ingredients for summoning Mephala from Daggerfall, is there any crossover between those elements and the elements needed for the Black Sacrament? Because that can establish if there is any sort of
because that's actually a really great question.
Also, do we know what Vivek keeps in his pantry? Because we may just be preparing Vivek's lunch.
I steal stuff from Vivek's pantry all the time.
No, you steal stuff from Vivek's pants.
Specifically Godhood from his pants.
Yeah. We have So there's the debate of whether or not we're talking directly to the Night Mother, or are we talking to Mephala, who's pretending to be the Night Mother. If Mephala's pretending to be the Night Mother, my question would be, why bother? It just seems much more like a Daedric kind of thing to do, to just be there, to just fucking show up,
Well, but here's the thing. What is more Mephala than to have two guilds of assassins hate each other and play both sides so that they kill each other?
Yeah.
Like, that's pretty Mephala.
Yeah.
And if you're saying to both of them that you're Mephala, that's some common ground that they could theoretically bond over.
That's some pretty brutal shit. Yeah.
That's counterintuitive.
But at the same time, the Dark Brotherhood will say that they worship Sithis, and something that has been pointed out by in-game books actually is that worshiping Sithis is about as useful as pissing in the wind. It doesn't do anything. You can't worship Sithis because Sithis doesn't give a fuck about you. Sithis is not a Daedra. Yeah.
I would like to point out that in Daggerfall, Mephala's summoning day is the 13th of Frostfall. That's October 13th. That's
yeah.
I thought that was funny.
Yeah, it's pretty spooky. Yeah. So, Sithis isn't real. Yeah. So, I kind of think it doesn't. I kind of think that Sithis is a very primal and vague entity. I mean, it's hard to get more primal or vague than an Aedra or like Lorcan or similar, but I kind of feel like Sithis is not well formed on purpose, it's sort of like I mean, I know that like what's his name, I almost said the black goat of the forest, close, the big eyeball tentacle hentai thing, Hermaeus Mora. I was trying to get to Mora. I kind of feel like Hermaeus Mora gets most of the credit as being the big Cthulhu creature in Elder Scrolls, but I really honestly think that Sithis fills the bill better because it's so unspeakable and abstract and unknowable that you can't even get a representation of the damn thing.
Hermaeus Mora is just a nerdy squid. Then Sithis is the proper Lovecraftian horror.
I kind of think so.
That's exactly the same as actual Cthulhu mythos, because Cthulhu is the priest, but Azathoth is the actual god you need to worry about.
Yeah. And Doc's got a good point. Sithis is a lot like the Glorantha Chaosium. Yeah. Yeah. It's very primal and eldritch. Yeah. It's very good.
Which makes sense for a band of murderers, murderers for murderers' sake.
Man in the
to
wall.
Be worshiping. Yeah. It's just pessimistic nihilism. nothing really matters. Anyone can see. Nothing really matters. So I'm going to nail you to a tree.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
that also kind of I'm kind of curious about the Brotherhood's sort of eschatology, or their way of being what they are, because they have the claim of their killing sends the souls of those they kill to Sithis. But how? What's the mechanism?
Why? What does Sithis want with them?
Yeah, there's also some lines from ESO that talks about the blade of woe being supposedly one blade that the whole guild then uses. But there's some say, oh, it's patterned after it, or it's the way of using it, or something like that kind of replicates it. But it's never made clear as to how all this stuff hangs together. For a mystic death cult, they really don't have their cosmologies sorted out.
No.
Plus the bit that is weird in Skyrim is that they know that you've taken their kill, so to speak, because you pick up the Black Sacrament and respond to it. But they don't have a current connection to the Night Mother because they don't have a listener. So do they have some sort of Mephala answering machine in the back somewhere? What's going on to how the Brotherhood knows what's going on, unless they just pick up rumors that there is this.
They're the ones selling the hearts.
Yeah, there is some sort
an
of
8-year-old buying a human heart. They're going to be paying attention.
Yeah, because in fairness, that's how you hear about it a lot of the time. You hear these rumors of this strange kid in Windhelm doing all this odd stuff.
Well, I think because the implication in Skyrim is that the Dark Brotherhood has gotten away from the Night Mother.
Yeah,
they've just become just a band of assassins. Like they've been lowered a peg. And so that's how they've been operating, is through rumor. Oh, someone wants to assassinate such and such, and then
we'll get on it. Yeah,
I'm gonna go and check on that.
And there's no Dark Sacrament or Black Sacrament, whatever happening. None of that stuff. It's just people are just saying, oh, somebody might want somebody dead. Let's get on it.
Yeah,
and that's not good enough.
So when Aventa Seratino starts doing Black Sacrament, I think that's kind of the catalyst for the Night Mother's return. Because I mean, that kind of goes back to like a mythopoeia kind of thing. The amount of belief you have in a deity or figure relates to how much power they have. So,
and also, to an extent, determinism, because think about all of the events that kind of had to come together for that. Because Cicero had to be fleeing the Oblivion sanctuary and everything else, and being on his way to wherever, to be in the remote vicinity of Skyrim, for the Night Mother to be anywhere near to be able to hear this stuff. And then Aventia Sarantino just decides to do this straight off the cuff. There's an awful lot of parts that have to coalesce for the events of Skyrim's Dark Brotherhood questline to play out the way it does.
I think that's a weird combo of just writing, because they need things to happen in the game, right? And so if we're gonna make something happen, well, let's make it happen. Not necessarily determinism from an in-universe perspective, but that's just how it was written to be.
It's not how it always happens. It's just the way it happened for your
more
character.
Coincidental. The Night Mother just happened to be there.
Because it makes for an interesting game. Yeah, that's all.
Or did Aventus Aretino get the idea to start doing the Black Sacrament? The Night Mother picked up like I'm getting a signal from Skyrim. Haven't got one of those in a while. And then and then engineered things so that shit hit the fan in Cyrodiil, so that Cicero had to bring her to go make sure this one's done right.
More Santa Muerte stuff and stuff. Yeah, that would be
good.
Well,
I was just thinking, because if in ESO, I remember there was like some face paint you can get. It's supposed to be like Vivek face paint, but it's done in like a sugar skull kind of fashion. So that would be kind of a cool aesthetic little link there if the Night Mother was to be portrayed as more of a Santa Muerte, because that's that that Latinx culture that's creating ties between the Night Mother and Vivek now.
Mm-hmm.
I think that'd be I'd like to see more of like Latinx culture represented in Tamriel, honestly.
Yeah, there's well anyway. So there's not any there doesn't seem to I know that they have various Dark Brotherhood what you want to call it, organizations in various parts all over the world. Generally seems to be like one per province. But there isn't really a set method of organization except for the inspiration of listeners by the Dark Mother, or the Night Mother, excuse me, and it very much matches the modus operandi of a cult. Where members are encouraged to separate themselves from society, and only the fringes of society are invited in at first. So you get a lot of loners and a lot of weirdos, and then the idea of everybody just listens to just follows the blindly follows the orders of one single person, who refuses to speak to anybody else. And that's it's hard to ignore the tendency that the Black Brotherhood has towards like a death cult, or similarities to real world death cults, or if you want, doomsday cult. And the connection that they have to Sithis doesn't help. So I can kind of understand why, at least certainly in Skyrim, a lot of NPCs, or not a lot, but at least several NPCs will talk to great lengths about how absolutely ferociously frightening the organization is. Because they all operate completely separately in their own little sort of Al-Qaeda clusters. They don't have a centralized modus operandi. They don't have a centralized leadership, so there's no head to cut off of that snake.
Although that it is implied that it should be, because again, going back to the structure of the kind of the one listener and the four speakers, that if I remember correctly, that's not a per province.
It's implied to be a through the entire organization.
Yeah.
Which I mean doesn't translate well in the games because you're relegated to a single province. So you're in Cyrodiil. Well, that's where the Black Hand happens to be. And I mean that's kind of the case throughout all the games with almost any aspect.
The
skeleton key is everywhere apparently.
In theory, you should also have the speakers kind of. Like I'd imagine that the speakers should almost be entirely kind of itinerant, so to speak, and a lot of the focus would be on them relaying the stuff that the listener says. So the speakers go where they need to, where the listener directs them, from that central hub. So you don't have the Hydra. That's one of Cicero's big issues in Skyrim, is that as Doc has posted in chat, the idea of if something is carrying on as the Dark Brotherhood without a listener or a speaker acting on behalf of the listener to direct them as to where they go, is that still really the Dark Brotherhood? So you shouldn't have the many-headed Hydra. You cut off the listener from talking to the speakers, and the whole hand falls apart.
And as Dr. Nightstone is pointing out in chat, Cicero's journal has some lines about the fact that Astrid's been running the Dark Brotherhood chapter in Skyrim without a listener, without any commands from the Night Mother, and it makes a lot of and like Cicero himself will say, the Night Mother doesn't talk to me, and it's kind of a plot point for Cicero about how upset he is that he's not a listener. Despite all the various balms that he's been rubbing on that corpse. And it sort of makes sense that from if you think about it from a cult perspective, that that the Dark Brotherhood in Skyrim has been operating as long as it can, doing what it thinks is its holy duty to perform, but without confirmation or in fact commands to do it, they're going to do it anyway, which is again part of the problem that these death cults have, which is that they've got an idea in their head that something needs to happen, and they're going to make that happen, even if there's literally no evidence whatsoever, or commands or actual like messages to perform that duty. They're going to do it anyway. And if you want to start inserting QAnon in here, then you can go ahead and do that, because that's kind of where I'm headed with this.
I was thinking more of like classic Satanism.
Okay, yeah.
Because I feel like that's a closer comparison. Because I mean, if when you think of like a satanic cult, right? The point is like to worship Satan or something. I mean, I'm no Satanist myself in that respect, so I don't really know what the actual purpose is. I mean, I guess if we look at LaVeyan Satanism, I mean, that's almost more mystical. I mean, the dude was still a troll, but then we have like the Satanic Temple, of which I am a member. Which is not about Satan at all. Yeah, it is. Right. It's mostly it's a political rhetorical tool. And
every once in a while you go and do a thing, and then at the end of it you're like, "Hail Satan!" And that's that's your only obligation.
There's no real spirituality there anymore. It's just the actions. So if we were to compare, the Dark Brotherhood as it's supposed to be, we could compare that to LaVeyan Satanism. Here we have, all these rituals and all these things that we do, and for the glory of the Dark Lord or whatever. But then we get the Satanic Temple, and it's and I have nothing against the Satanic Temple because I think they do good work, but it's there's a divorce.
Weird thing to be able to say these days, but there it is. Satanic Temple, they do good work.
I have a membership card somewhere.
Yeah.
I'll let you print it, but
it had no spirituality. Yeah, well, right, hedonists, but
yeah. But I mean, you get the comparison I'm making.
Well, that also begs the question of what's the kind of the end purpose of the Brotherhood, because Cicero is quite concerned about people killing in the wrong way.
Right.
Which is much more a Morag Tong thing. If just killing is what the Dark Brotherhood is about, then he shouldn't have a complaint, really.
Yeah. True. Well, then if they're not about just killing people, and they are in fact about like doing the will of the Night Mother, then why would they kill anybody without direct orders from a listener?
Is Cicero just a stand-in for people in the lore community who say, "Oh, well, the Dark Brotherhood is just edgy"?
They're just edgelords. That's all
they're an edgy death cult. They don't actually. There's no substance there, but the Morag Tong. There we go.
That's an organization that makes sense.
Yeah. Like, it seems like Cicero's kind of mirroring that a little bit.
The Morag Tong gets fanboys because they have cool looking armor. That's about it.
Oh yeah. I've actually my son is creating a character for my tabletop game that I'm going to be running. I'm running White Plume Mountain set in Tamriel, though. And I had to because it's chic. And my son wanted to create a character. He wanted to be a ninja. He'd been watching Naruto, so he's ninjas. And so I said, well, if you want to be a character from Tamriel, you can be a dark elf Morag Tong assassin, and that can be your thing. He's like, yeah, let's do that. Can I use poison? Like, sure.
Okay.
So he's got a pretty sick assassin build.
Stealth archer, I would assume.
What's that?
Stealth archer, I would assume.
No.
Right? Yeah.
No. He's using throwing knives. Those are his preferred weapon.
Ooh.
But because let's see, how did that shake out? He's got 3 levels in Exposed Palm Monk, 2 levels in Betrayer Nightblade, and 5 levels in Assassin Rogue. So, and that's from
1 level in cooking.
That's UEST RPG. That's the the system I'm using, just because it merges so well with 5e. So with my multiverse stuff, I can jump back and forth pretty easily. But
let me know how White Plume Mountain shakes out. They
it's gonna be
don't
a lot of
make
fun.
them like that anymore. for a reason.
Oh yeah. Well, and I'm gonna have to briefly retire my character because he's a minotaur with wings, and so a lot of the because Tamriel.
Yeah, and a lot of White Blue Mountain gets broken when you have.
Oh yeah, no, and
flight.
I mean he's my character anyway, so I don't want him to really be there because I don't want to like Deus Ex Machina myself, So instead, Caraptus, the guy who the big bad guy at the end, he set up a field keeping people from Tamriel out.
Mm-hmm.
So only the rest of the party can come in. My character can't because he's from. So although I guess that would keep my son out too. I don't know.
Well, let's just hand wave it.
Yeah.
Lig.
Well, yeah, because Lig. Because Coda, so, So, unfortunately, I mean, when we're talking about the Dark Brotherhood, aside from how completely excellent the quests are, they're pretty much open and shut kind of thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's you can do the entire Dark Brotherhood in an afternoon. Like it
was pretty quick.
There's not a whole lot there.
Shadow scales.
We can talk
Shadow scales. I don't really like shadow scales.
well, I learned recently. Someone corrected me the other day. Because I was under the impression that shadow scales were the term for the Saxhleel who are born under the shadow, who are then inducted into the Dark Brotherhood.
That's my understanding. They have a great predisposition.
The shadow scales are actually their own organization.
Yeah.
Huh?
Yeah, I did not know that. Someone, I think it was in like the Elder Scrolls Online subreddit. They corrected me on that. I was like, oh shit.
They are an order of Argonian assassins originating in Blackmarsh.
Yeah.
So why are they associated?
Some kind of, and I think it's through like worship of Sithis, like they have down there. So
they're born under the sign of the shadow and are taken at birth and offered to the Dark Brotherhood, where they are trained in the arts of stealth and assassination. Any shadow scale who lives to come to age is accepted by the Dark Brotherhood and becomes a full member of the family. They may also leave the Dark Brotherhood to serve the Argonian people in Blackmarsh.
Okay, so you've got shadow scales playing some form of role within Black Marsh.
Yeah, so it's
serving Sithis.
It's almost like they're freelance a little bit.
A little bit, yeah.
Like they can choose to go contract, but if they want to go freelance and at home and stay close to their sick mother or whatever,
you can. The taxes are a bitch, but going 1099 is rough.
I'd almost imagine them to be kind of like the Morag Tong in that case, when they're kind of being among in Black Marsh, that they're performing a societal function to. I don't know whether it'd be too much of a stretch to say that they're performing the will of Sithis and keeping the tribes functioning according to how the Hist or Sithis or whatever.
Yeah, I mean it makes a lot of sense because they're a catalyst for change, and Anthony, having played through Murkmire, that's a big thing to them. It's why they don't build stone structures. Life is change, and they try to embrace that. If that means people have to get assassinated as part of that change, be it. It is the will of Sithis. So
here comes some heresy. Sithis is a Hist. There's one very evil tree in Blackmarsh.
No. All the Sithis. Or all the Sithis. All the Hist.
All the Hist is Sithis, yeah. That's been knocked around a bunch, yeah. Mm-hmm.
Just one. Just one really evil tree.
Okay. Sithis it, yeah.
Like the opposite of a Christmas tree.
I don't know whether we've entirely discussed the whole idea of the self-destruction of the Dark Brotherhood yet. Particularly, is it just a case of Khorne cares not from whence the blood flows, or is it
blood god?
Bingo.
And that's, I mean,
actually get a bingo.
Well, I mean, if you okay,
I can check.
If you cheater.
Have if you when you have these, like a cult like the Dark Brotherhood, who are dedicated to nothing but murdering the shit out of as much stuff as they can possibly get their hands on, within reason, and that dries up, that market, the market bubble bursts, you end up with a situation like you've got in Skyrim, where they're gonna do what they do, and they're gonna use any reason they can think of to do it. And in Skyrim, that was literally just rumor and conjecture, just people guessing. And if the Dark Brotherhood ends up in a situation where they get isolated, like a Dark Brotherhood organization gets isolated and can't run around and murder, people on the basis of rumor and conjecture, they're going to run around and murder anything they can get their hands on. It's like if you have a cult full of cannibals who suddenly don't have anybody to kill and eat, who do you think they're going to turn on?
They're going to draw lunch.
Yeah, I mean...
Sorry, Jimmy, you drew the short straw today.
Yeah, meat's back on the menu. I mean, it's... So, I don't... the self-destruction of the Dark Brotherhood's an easy call. I mean, it's absolutely possible. It's... the only thing keeping the Dark Brotherhood from falling apart is that they continue to get listeners, and that the Night Mother or Sithis or Befala or whatever continues to, speak with them. It's entirely I don't know if we're going to get. I don't even know if we're going to get an Elder Scrolls 6, but I don't know if we're going to get a Dark Brotherhood in the Elder Scrolls 6, and it wouldn't be completely insane if we didn't, because shit gets cut. But if we did, I would be very interested to see what kind of condition they're in, because Oblivion and Skyrim have pretty much hit the two constructive binaries that I think you can get at, which the first one being they're not listening to the listener has been corrupted and is giving them bad juju, and the second one being in Skyrim, there is no listener. Beyond that, if you have any other scenario, as far as I can think off the top of my head, I don't think you get a Dark Brotherhood. There's just nothing.
The Dark Brotherhood is doing great.
But that's not an interesting plot. Centuries. That's not an interesting plot. I'll take it back. The only other scenario I can think of is there's no Dark Brotherhood, and the player gets contacted by the Night Mother, and all of a sudden turns into a listener and has to start the Dark Brotherhood organization.
I got one for you.
Yep.
There was another assassin who was picking off members of the Dark Brotherhood, and they can't figure out who it is. So you gotta serve as like a detective and turn it into a whodunit to save the sanctuary.
Or you could.
But then it turns out this guy is like a devotee of like Sithis or Mephala or something. He's just doing Mephala's will.
Yeah. Having the whole thing as kind of an inside job would be quite neat, and it kind of fits. If you
not even inside job, just someone entirely removed.
Yeah. And if you think about sort of just thinking about the long view of the Dark Brotherhood as an organization, if it does have its ultimate roots in Sithis, and we potentially can argue that the Argonians might have the same, the Argonian social structures are kind of little tribes will turn up, bubble up, do their thing, and then break down, and so on and so forth. Then the Dark Brotherhood should follow a similar pattern, that they will have organizations that come along, come to the surface, function for a while, break down. Then there's another one that comes up because the Night Mother contacts someone and starts talking to them, and so on. So that sort of cycle, I think, is kind of expected. So that the Dark Brotherhood is possibly just an almost a supernatural contagion upon Tamriel. Because it will always be there, because it's an instrument of Sithis's. I know that Deadite will scowl at me if I say Sithis's will, but that was about where I was going to go with it.
Hate.
Yeah, of a presence representing Sithis as Sithis's metaphysical function.
There is.
You're talking about the wraiths of Sithis, right?
Not really, but
I think I figured out how you could do a strong Dark Brotherhood. You have the Dark Brotherhood doing so well that it's become more than just a nuisance. It's become a problem. So the rest of the province has declared open war. And now you're in deep shit.
And 1-800 Human Hearts has been shut down by the government. So,
So something I kind of want to talk about: the Blade of Woe.
Okay.
What do we know about the Blade of Woe?
Well,
It's really, really useful in ESO.
Yeah, ESO has very interesting opinions about the Blade of Woe.
Yes.
Yeah, it almost takes the Blade of Woe and turns it into more of an ability than an object that you have.
Yeah.
It makes me think of, you summon the blade and that's how you kill. Or something like that.
So does that mean there's only one blade? And it's just getting teleported around?
Yeah, that's literally, I think, what they say in ESO is that everybody uses the Blade of... you summon sort of the Blade of Woe. It's not really the knife that you get. It's a, I don't know.
You learn the password to grab the knife.
Yeah, sort of.
It's less a blade and more an actual thing and more a technique.
Yeah.
The way that I can kind of see that is that, particularly and this is getting a little gamey-wamey, but the way that the Blade of Woe functions in ESO, particularly relative to how class abilities in general function, is that it's a particular form of spell crafting that some particularly keen Dark Brotherhood warlock and says, wouldn't it be really cool if we had the essence of this thing with us always? I can knock up a spell for that, and knocks out a bunch of lines of code, and bingo.
Well, I kind of feel like, and this is sort of my own interpretation here, I like to think it works in the same way as shard blades in the Stormlight archives, if anyone's familiar. You remember Brandon Sanderson? So in this series, there are swords or weapons that you can summon. You have to attune yourself to them, and they are incredibly light, incredibly strong. They can cut through anything except flesh. Instead, they cut through the soul. So if you were to cut through someone's neck with it, their eyes would burn out, their flesh goes done, and they die. You can cut off an arm and then the arm goes limp. It is no longer part of the body. So a shard blade, something like that, being the Blade of Woe, it cuts the soul rather than the body. And so it kills someone that way. So if you get it like right in the spine, well, you've just severed the brain's connection to the rest of the body. And now, you killed. I don't know. I mean, that's kind of a fun.
Or is it just a hateful sword of Gryffindor?
Yeah, it's got all that goblin make. Yeah.
Yeah, that Deus Ex Machina.
It comes to those that need it to commit heinous murder.
Oh yeah, I'm getting more Dagon's Razor vibes here.
Yeah, a little bit. Yeah.
Which I wonder. I mean, if it's, I kind of think of it as being some kind of artifact of Mephala. So maybe Mephala is taking a leaf out of Dagon's book, and.
But if you look at it, it's much cruder. So perhaps someone in the Dark Brotherhood got their hands on Mehrunes Razor, was smart enough to look at it and see kind of how it works.
Reverse engineer it or something.
It's a false sunder.
Well, if we've got
Mehrunes Razor.
Some penny just dropped for Chris.
I'm marking that as the on my bingo card.
I'm just gonna, in case no one's playing, I'm just gonna do that. Let's see, how many can I? Let's see.
What was your thought process there, Chris, that led to the O?
It's not as good. It's not that good. The more I think about it, it's not that great. Yeah. I was drawing a connection between Mehrunes Razor and Keening, but
no,
it's not that good. So it's but what I was going to say about the Blade of Woe is that its similarity to Mehrunes Razor is similar, except that, well, it has something. It's somewhat similar if you consider the Blade of Woe to be a Daedric artifact of Mephala. But Daedric artifacts generally don't make themselves available in like all over the place to many people at the same time. If you go with the ESO explanation. If you go with the depiction of the Blade of Woe in Oblivion and Skyrim, it fits a little better. as a Daedric artifact. But
well, I mean, by the same token, everyone in ESO also has access to Dawnbreaker through the Fighters Guild quest lines.
Okay, yeah.
So a Daedric artifact being present for everybody, I think that's more game mechanics.
Well, with ESO, that's a good question, actually. With ESO, when you access Dawnbreaker, are you the only vestige who is accessing Dawnbreaker, or are all vestiges?
We don't have a text that kind of substantiates the idea that it is happening in multiple places at once, like we do with Blade of Woe.
Right, and almost the entire main story quest of ESO leads you to believe that if there are more than one vestiges, you're the only one who's doing what you're doing. You know.
Yeah. Although it could just be that you're not using Dawnbreaker. You're using Dawnbreaker's power with your weapon as a conduit.
Oh,
yeah. Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's a lot of ways to explain that. Yeah.
So
you could say similar things about the Blade of Woe, but
maybe it's not the Blade of Woe. Maybe it's how to make a Blade of Woe 101.
Yeah, it's the attribution of Blade of Woe. It's the
So I wonder if it's like a mass-produced kind
Blade
of thing.
Woe extends Blade of Woe. Blade of Woe equals new Blade of Woe. Anyway, yeah. All right. Sorry.
Well, it says it takes the form of an ebony dagger and can, at its most lethal, instantly kill its targets and can shroud the wielder from view. I mean, that's coming from Oblivion, obviously, because the Blade of Woe gains more power the more you use it in Oblivion. I don't remember if that happens with Skyrim too.
Nope.
I mean, you can craft to upgrade it, but I don't.
You can somehow sharpen it, despite the fact that makes no sense.
In the mid-Second Era, every member of the Dark Brotherhood could call upon the blade. When wielded by those of high rank in Dark Brotherhood, using it to kill could hide the wielder from view. Despite being a single weapon, it could be summoned simultaneously by any number of assassins. Though assassins were not required to use a Blade of Woe to kill their target, some contracts offered bonuses for using it to eliminate the target. Oh, yeah, that's ESO stuff.
Toward there, there's a theory that there's only a single electron in the entire universe, and that's all just moving around all over the place.
Maybe. I mean, now I'm kind of imagining, in some, super secret vault sanctuary somewhere, they've got, I'm kind of imagining, that the rose in the case in Beauty and the Beast, but it's the Blade of Woe, like the actual thing, and then it can somehow transmit itself to people. So by tapping into it, they can use some semblance of its power.
It's a quantum sword of Gryffindor.
Yeah. I think that's kind of cool.
Oh, was it disproved? Okay. Thank God, because it makes my eyes cross every time I think about it. Yeah, that's a tough theory to get your head around.
Yeah.
So
that's almost zen there a little bit.
It really is. It's just really hard to think about.
If it is one weapon, and multiple different people can use it at the same time, but different people are getting different effects, is the change in the weapon or in the wielder?
Oh, it's in the wielder.
I would assume in the wielder, yeah, because it could be based on the strength of your devotion, the how worthy are you in the eyes of the Night Mother.
It's the color of your soul, man.
Your tolerance to the weapon.
Yeah.
Perhaps it's.
Oh yeah.
Perhaps you have to build up a tolerance to be able to use the absolute bullshit powers associated with it.
Turning invisible for 30 seconds after each kill and all that crap. Yeah.
Like microdosing yourself with venom, to build an immunity to it.
Which makes sense considering, the poisoned blade being necessary for the Black Sacrament.
Yeah, Captain's got a good point that this could be a form of the Shihai, sort of, or a very similar type of magic.
I mean, that's cool, but I can't think of any actual links to the Shihai or Yokudan.
No, but I do like the idea of it being a product of a person's soul. I mean, that would explain why it does different things for different people,
Yeah, and it also...
What would happen if somebody tried to do sword singing with the blade of woe?
What would happen if somebody tried to do sword singing and did it at all? I mean, that's a lost art for a reason, you know.
We'll probably find out in the Elder Scrolls 6.
Probably will. Probably will. I bet you good money that's going to be the shtick for the main character. Yeah.
Yep.
And it's going to require a microphone, and you're going to have to actually sing.
God, I don't want to do that.
Who's singing?
We're just talking about our nightmare scenarios for Elder Scrolls 6, I think.
Fly me to the moon. Let me play among the stars.
I don't have a
And
microphone
that's
for
how
that.
you get to the moon.
Yep.
That's how you get into an all-in-all video.
That's the Khajiit Tower. Let me see what spring is like on
Yeah.
Master and
So
Secunda.
Now I'm just imagining a Khajiit in like a Vegas tuxedo from
Right,
the
the
60s.
big collars. Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah.
Zoot suit.
Yeah, cigar and a rocks glass full of Sujama. Yeah.
Hey.
Floating upwards at about walking speed
No,
towards
wait.
the moon.
Whenever I get around to writing this film noir Dunmer whodunit, there's going to be a Rat Pack in there.
Mm-hmm.
And they're going to be, Frank Sinatra and Sammy Davis Jr. and the whole
with a
bunch.
lazy eye.
And they're all different fur stocks.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And Frank
Yeah.
Sinatra is the
Anyway.
house cat size one.
Anyway,
All right. Do we have anything else to cover?
Yeah, I think we've careened.
Yeah,
vastly.
we've gone right off the rails here. I mean, I think we've pretty much got everything.
Talk about the lucky old lady?
Who?
The lucky.
Oh, you mean
lucky
the statue? That was if I recall correctly, that's literally, I think that you're supposed to. The idea is that you're supposed to think that that's actually the Night Mother in Oblivion.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's. And then like the statue like moves because first she's like and then
she goes all evil. Yeah. Which, by the way, is an awesome effect. I thought that was really great in Oblivion. It was.
Yeah, that was cool.
Yeah.
I like that.
That whole quest line Oblivion's really good. I'm gonna have to go back and play that again.
What is your favorite Dark Brotherhood quest?
Oh, the go and kill everybody in that mansion.
Yes, the haunted
Yes.
house.
Yeah.
That one had a lot of potential. I could never get the intrigue right to get everyone to kill each other.
Oh,
There
it's hard to do, but it's worth it.
I always had to kill like 2 people, and I was like, man, that's such a waste.
Yeah, it's hard to do, but it's absolutely worth it if you read a guide or something like that and pull it off. Then it's so satisfying. But eventually, I think the first time I tried to do it without a guide, I just ended up just trying to get everybody into a room alone and then stabby, and that was it. But getting them to kill each other is absolutely the best possible scenario. It's just too much fun.
Tell them you're the killer? They're like, hey, I'm the killer. What's up?
Some of them, yeah. If I recall correctly, I think towards the end, I think you eventually in fact, if you do the intrigue one on the very last person, you can. They're just like, we did it. We found the killer, and you're like, nah.
Surprise!
Yeah.
Yeah. Or even better, yes, you did. Stab.
Yeah. We sneak into the walls and drop a moose head on somebody. Yep, that's right.
One thing that we were going to discuss and we talked about precast was in Skyrim there was an awful lot of dialogue options where you can just say absolutely nothing.
Yeah. And why is that relevant? Well, I mean, considering the fact that you become the listener in both of these, where those options are available, it is the little ... say nothing option or whatever. Is that just edgelord? Is that the edgelord option, or is it?
You can do it in ESO too. And that's like the only time that's ever presented is in the context of the Dark Brotherhood. I mean, even if you take the perk that gives you, a little helper guy in the Outlaws Refuge, his name is Remain Silent, and you can walk up and just talk to him, and the first option is Remain Silent, and then like it ends conversation. So it's like.
It really should have just put it in a recursive loop.
Yeah, you just stand there staring at each other.
Yeah,
and if you did it long enough, it just open dialogue to like trade or whatever.
So Skyu did mention the 5 tenets, the Wraiths of Sithis, and the Black Doors. Was there anything we wanted to?
Oh yeah, what the hell's up with those doors?
I mean, I think they're just enchanted doors.
Oh, as in the ones that require a riddle to pass through.
Well, that and I mean even just how they're presented. Like I think the ones, I mean, they almost look Egyptian in like how they present the Night Mother and her 5 children. Because I mean, let me pull up an image.
And I imagine as well that it's something that only inducted members would actually be able to see. Again with the very fuzzily defined mysticism of the Dark Brotherhood being a thing. I don't see that someone random is just going to walk up and see this and see this skull embossed door and think, I'm just going to ignore this now. They're going to ask questions, and the Dark Brotherhood isn't going to be the kind of organization where you want those sorts of questions asked.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, it is pretty funny imagining just random people walking up, seeing the black doors of the Dark Brotherhood, and just going, nope, I'm gonna forget what I just saw,
or something. Like someone shows up with the glow sticks and then they get murdered.
They know what's going on and they see it and they're just like, I'm out. I'm forgetting I saw
I don't
that.
need this in my life. Yeah.
oh,
So the black doors in Oblivion, I actually like their design a lot more than the ones in Skyrim.
Yeah.
Because they have the Night Mother holding a child and a dagger, and it's very Egyptian hieroglyphs. Like stories that are on like tombs of pharaohs and stuff. And then the 4 other children are like, no. And then you get the handprint in the forehead of the skull, which I assume represents Sithis. And then the one in Skyrim, it just has, so you still have the skull with the hand, and then the Night Mother is now just a skeleton, like slumped to the side, with 5 skulls on the other side and a dagger stuck in them. Which, that's almost more boring to me. I mean, it shows us what has happened rather than showing us what is happening.
why do you think that that Oblivion is showing us what is happening? Because they're both representing the kind of the primal event of killing her children.
I don't necessarily mean that in events of the game. I mean, it's showing. So the one in Oblivion shows us in progress what happens with the Night Mother and her children.
Okay, yeah.
Whereas the one in Skyrim shows us what happened with the Night Mother and her children.
Yeah, you got
Do we know?
I like seeing the act itself. Which, what does that say about me? I don't know. But I'm trying to look up the ESO door. I don't think it differs a whole lot from.
I think it's a little more simple, if I remember correctly.
And SkyUTV has pointed out that the black doors also make beating heart sounds as well.
Oh yeah,
It's just nice and creepy, but also just indicates that there's something a bit more going on with the magic that enchants them.
That's 2 links to Lorcan and or Dagoth I just picked up on. Got the hand in the center of the eye. That looks like Dagother's 3rd eye. And then the heartbeat being the heart of Lorcan.
Well, Lorcan is the child of Sithis, so...
Yeah.
Hey, we finally got a bingo.
Yeah.
Well, okay. I had a senior dog issue, so I'm gonna go deal with him.
Fair enough.
We did it. Yep. we cracked the code. What do we want to do next week or the week after?
I mean, do we want to keep going on guilds? Like,
the idea of factions that came up in the chat sounded good.
I think that. I mean,
Which one next then?
Only ask chat. Chat, what do you want to see next?
Yeah.
Yep.
Anybody got an opinion? I mean, we could do Morag Tong, but that's going to be pretty brief too.
Yeah, it's gonna be. I mean, we could probably do it at the end, like tie up.
That's
loose ends.
Yeah, Mages Guild. Yeah, easy.
Mages Guild. I think the Vigilance of Stendar would be cool.
Oh, sure.
Mages Guild would allow us to talk about their horrific safety practices.
Yes.
Well, I eventually would kind of like to go into like the different knightly orders around the Iliac Bay.
I think I'm not sure there's
or
necessarily
in Cyrodiil.
but for those for their own cast. I think a lot of the stuff we're now coming up with is probably going to fit into a miscellaneous factions cast.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Yeah, I'm just kind of thinking of what are some interesting things to talk about.
Yeah.
I think we could do a pretty interesting Ashlanders cast, but it's going to require me doing a lot of research into early culture, like early tribal culture in various or tribes in various cultures, I should say. But there's a lot to unpack there.
Ashlanders would be a lot of fun. Honestly.
Yeah. So let's plan on the Mages Guild next, because that was Doc's suggestion, and also it was first.
Yeah, it's been repeated a few times. So
yeah,
we could. Well, we could briefly talk about like Man and Marco and the difference between soul gems and the schools of magic. Like, there's a lot we could talk about.
And the Dawnstar incident. No, not Dawnstar.
You're talking about Azra Nightwielder, aren't you?
I'm talking about where did the rest of the city go?
Oh, in the Mages Guild, in Skyrim. Yeah, sure.
Oh yeah, Winterhold.
Yeah, we can talk about that.
Winterhold. The Winterhold incident.
Winterhold. There you go.
There's a little Fighters Guild lore, but honestly, it's not that interesting. I mean,
We'll see.
Yeah. Let me do some reading, and maybe that'll be the case.
Yes.
And in the meantime, bye-bye.
Bye-bye,
no, not bye-bye. Bye-bye. No, not bye-bye. If anybody has any questions, please email them to selectiveslorecast@gmail.com.
Do we not have any emails to?
We have not.
Lately.
Nobody loves us. Nobody sends us letters.
Every one of you.
Yes.
And in that respect, okay, now. Bye-bye.
Yes. Bye-bye, everyone.
Goodbye now.
Weird.